Okay, so we're talking about quality management in product development. I have shared this resource in the Google Classroom. So for those who would like to follow along, you can go and download it on Google Classroom. Now we have, this is the last stage of product development before launch. Now last week we talked about launch, and if anybody has noticed, and I trust that you should have noticed, we have covered every aspect of product management. From week one, I taught us about the five stages of the problem ideation phase, right? And we've covered every single stage. We've covered how to conduct customer research, user research, market research, customer competitive analysis. We've touched on product design. We've touched on how to write a PRD, how to write a roadmap. We've touched on what else have we done? We have done product design. We have done go-to-market strategy. We have done, we have covered, we've talked about Agile and Scrum. We've covered every single aspect of product management that you as a product manager, you will be involved in, right? Now, what we are talking about today is quality management, which, as I said, is the second to last stage of product development. So you do quality management and then you greenlight your product for launch. Now let's get into it. What is quality management in software or product development? Quality management involves the process of ensuring that the product meets the highest quality standards set. It is the process of ensuring that the product meets the highest quality standards in terms of functionality, usability, and user satisfaction, right? Now, quality management is just essentially, some of us who already work in a professional setting know what QA/QC is, right? And so quality management is just ensuring that these products that you are putting out, even aside digital, there's also quality management in physical products. Just the process of ensuring that, this product that you've made, it meets the expectation that one you set for the product. Remember that you had already set expectations when you documented your PRD. So you're ensuring that one, it meets the expectation that you've documented. You're ensuring that two, it meets the user experience that you said you want, the smooth or the easy user experience you want to give your user. You are also ensuring that, okay, the product is functional, right? And that users are able to maybe use it on different software. People who have Android, people who have iOS, they're able to use your products without having any issues. Now, in software development, quality management involves 5 main aspects. Now, this is very important, and because we'll keep referring to this throughout the duration of this course. Now, quality management involves 5 main aspects against which the product should be tested against. What I'm saying is there are 5 aspects of, if you want to test a product, right? A mind frame or a mental framework to have is you are testing against 5 main aspects. Well, as a product manager, you are testing against 4, but generally, under quality management, there are 5 main aspects which a QA tester or a tester, a product tester, or quality management is done against or is benchmarked against. One of it is performance, and performance just refers to how well does your system perform its functions, or how well does it meet the documented user requirements. So this means that in testing a product, you as a product manager or a QA tester, you are testing the product, you are checking for performance, right? Does the system perform its functions optimally, or does it meet the requirements that you have set? You are testing for usability as well. And usability refers to the ease with which your users are able to use your system and understand its That is user experience, right? So you're testing for user experience. You're testing for reliability. Reliability refers to the ability of a system to continue operating without breakdown or failures. Does your product break down easily? An example, now you might be thinking, how can a digital product break down? Have you ever had an experience where you are using an app and it just randomly shuts down? Like you're on the app and the next thing the app has closed. You didn't close it, right? And it's a random occurrences. And a way that you have seen that that problem is resolved is that they will tell you to update the app, or maybe they push a new update to fix that issue. And that's because they've probably been getting user feedback that your app is shutting down abruptly, right? And so if the product was, now that could have been a result of a bug. But however, if a product is not tested for reliability, you'll find that users are not able to have a seamless experience. It will keep shutting down, or it will keep breaking down, or some features will not be working. It means that QA probably was not properly done on the product the way that it should have been done, right? You also test against maintainability. And this just refers to how easy it is to understand and modify code. Now, this is the aspect of quality management that a product manager might not need to be concerned with, because it involves, maintaining code and monitoring code, modifying code, and all of that. But interoperability refers to how well your product or your web application will work with other operating systems, either Android or iOS for mobile applications, or other browsers, without having any compatibility issues. Now, these 5 aspects of quality management, like I said, are benchmarks against which a quality check will be done for products. Now, there are also 3 main activities. Now, what we just addressed are 5 aspects of quality management. Under quality management, there are 3 main activities that falls under. Think of them like activities is actually the right word, or you can say categories. Now, there are 3 main activities that fall under quality management: quality control, quality planning, and quality assurance. However, for the context of this course, because we are all product managers, I like to address the aspects that will affect you, right? And which is quality assurance and quality control. And of which quality assurance and quality control, you are probably going to be more involved in quality control than quality assurance. But we'll address quality control, quality assurance, also known as QA/QC. However, in software development, they refer to the entire term as QA. But we are in literal terms, it is QA/QC. Now, what is quality assurance? Quality assurance is the proactive process of putting measures in place to ensure that potential defects are prevented from the beginning of the software development phase. This just means that QA is more proactive, means something you are doing before the thing happens, right? And so in quality assurance, it's just you implementing proactive steps into every step of your product development. And that can look differently. It can look like, oh yeah, you and the engineering manager are checking the code that your developers are coding to ensure that they are coding quality codes. It can look very different depending on your products. However, as a product manager, you will not really be tasked with implementing quality assurance processes, because it's more, QA in literal terms is more of a proactive process, and it starts at the beginning of software development, and it just lasts to the end. So it's more of a methodology, or like a mental, or a framework. Think of it as a work framework that software development teams just try to implement quality checks throughout every stage of product development process. And the goal of QA/QC is to identify defects and prevent them by ensuring that processes are correctly implemented from the beginning of the project. Now, quality control, on the other hand, is the reactive method of meticulously checking a product for errors. Reactive means the thing has already happened and you're reacting to it. And so it's just you checking the product for errors or bugs at the tail end of a product development. In real life software development scenarios, QC will look like when your developer has code, they will release the product, that is the app, to a test environment. There are several tools that can be used to simulate a test environment. When I say test environment, I just mean it's not on the App Store. It's just like an a software environment where the app is working as it would on the App Store, right? So when a product is pushed to the App Store, it's now live, right? But when it's in testing, it means that the product manager or a QA tester is conducting tests on the product. And what are you testing for? You're testing for bugs, you're testing for defects, you're testing for errors, you're testing to see whether your product matches the PRD. Not just the PRD, but the PRD is a good place to start because that's where you initially documented the requirements, and then from PRD you move from there and create QA documentation. Now, if a product passes QC, then it is ready for launch. So it's, like I said, it's the last phase before a product is launched. And so QC is a systematic approach that requires careful planning and execution. And it involves testing the product against documented requirements to see whether the various aspects of the product meets the set standards. Therefore, where QA provides the guidelines, remember I said it's more like a methodology. Where QA provides the guidelines, QC entails the practical examination. I'm going to mention this much later, but just even now, in technology, in the software development ecosystem or in tech teams, QA is usually used interchangeably with QC. But I am teaching the correct term so you know, but you're not confused, right? That's why I'm also giving you this caveat that QA is interchangeably used with QC. So if you are interviewing or you're having a conversation with somebody or your manager says, oh, we have to do QA, as the product manager, they're telling you that you need to test the products, which literally it's QC, but as I said, it's interchangeably used with QA. So they use QA to refer to even the process of testing and the process of what QA actually is. Now let's move on. What's the importance of quality management? Don't forget that quality management, as I said, quality management is the process of ensuring that your product meets the highest standards that are set. Now, what is the importance of doing quality management for your products? It helps enhance the user satisfaction. Now, if you release a product that is riddled with bugs to the hands of your users, it will frustrate your users. Case in point, the example I just gave, that you might be using a product and it's shut down, right? That's because the product probably has a bug on it and it's shutting down. And the fix that you usually would have experienced is that you have to go and update, meaning they've pushed a fix for it and then you have to go and update. Sometimes they might not push a fix to the App Store, but they push a fix through something called over-the-air update. But don't worry, we're not going to go into that. It's too advanced. Now, quality management helps you push out a product that is free from bugs so that your users are not frustrated. And so it guarantees your users a smooth and enjoyable user journey and user experience, leading to higher satisfaction and loyalty. Quality management also helps you reduce cost. Now, the cost involved in software development is not cheap. All these tools that, if you have actually been going back to do your research, you'll find that most of the tools that I have recommended or most of the tools that I have addressed for some of the functions have paid plans, right? And so you are even able to use like for example, Figma has a free and paid plan, and the free plan only works for individuals. Now, if you're working for a tech startup or you're operating on a tech team, most likely they will have to use a paid plan so that they can collaborate, right? Even tools like Notion, for you to be able to collaborate effectively, you most likely have to use a paid plan, which means that literally building a product costs money. So imagine spending all of this money on software tools that will help you build an optimal product, and you're not able to deliver a user experience that will maximize your future, or that will maximize the potential for your business goals to be met. It means that, first of all, there's going to be a rework. If you've pushed a product and you find that it's riddled with bugs, and you've spent money on launch, right? Maybe you engaged influencers, you spent money on advertisements, and just to acquire users, and you are not able to acquire users because your product is not delivering on its value. You are costing the business money. So doing efficient quality management costs. It helps the business to reduce costs and helps the business save money. It also helps with risk mitigation. Efficient quality control checks ensures that the risk of a product breaking down or not delivering its intended value is significantly minimized, as I've explained already. If you do quality management the right way, then you've minimized the risk of your product breaking down. Now, there are tendencies for your product to still break down even when you've done excellent quality management, right? That happens. Sometimes you just push things to production and things break. That happens. However, if there's an investigation and it is found that, it is because quality assurance was not properly done on the product, then it means that you have put your product at risk, cost money, wasted efforts. It can be problematic. And so quality management helps you mitigate all of this risk. It also helps you improve your product quality. Implementing the right quality management system leads to improved product quality, because QA helps you ensure that there's continuous improvement of the product, while QC helps you uncover areas for refinement, ultimately leading to a higher quality product. What are the difference between QA/QC and QA and QC? As I explained, QA is different, QC is different, and even though they are used interchangeably, for the purpose of this course, we're going to learn what the literal definitions are and what their differences are. And so what is the difference between QA and QC? Now, there are multiple differences, but we're going to address just these three. The key difference, number one, is their goal. Now, the goal of QA is to be proactive. And as I said, proactive is you trying to prevent something from happening. And so QA is trying to proactively address issues that could lead to potential quality. It means the issue has not happened, but QA is trying to improve the processes of software development, improve everybody's processes from design to development to even the testing process, trying to improve the processes so that they can prevent, or the team can prevent, potential quality errors from happening. Whereas QC is more reactive. Reactive meaning it has already happened. Now, there's in fact, it is actually standard that a developer will push a product to test environment, and their errors, their bugs, is standards. That's normal. And so QC is just the product manager or a QA tester. Now, see, I keep using QA tester because sometimes in large startups, you have a different... the thing about working in a startup, especially in a market like Nigeria, is you find that they are not able to employ different people for specific functions. And so you find that there are lots of roles that the product manager might end up filling, right? And this is one of it. Now, there's a very strong, very, 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 very strong propensity that the product manager will be conducting testing on the product. So you'll be more focused on the QC aspect of it. And so your goal is to identify bugs or issues that pose as a deviation from product specifications. Another key difference is in terms of timing. Now, QA, as I mentioned earlier, happens throughout the product development process, whereas QC takes place after the team has built the product and before the product is launched. And then the last difference we'll address is in terms of their nature. Now, QA involves incorporating quality management process into the process of software development, such as documentation of quality standards, audit, code review, personnel training. Remember, I said it's more like a methodology. So you're proactively trying to prevent the propensity of too much code errors, or too much bugs coming up in the final or the first iteration of the products that QC will test. Whereas QC is more focused on the product and ensuring that the final product quality meets standards. So those are the difference. Now, what is the role of a PM in quality management? I've touched on this randomly as I've been speaking, but even though as a product manager, there's not much that you don't know about when it comes to the products, because to be honest, you are managing a product. It's like literally, think of a manager that is managing somebody. There's nothing that you will not know about that person you are managing. Or if you are managing a product, there's nothing you will not know about that product you're managing. And that's what happens with being a product manager. And so anything that wants to happen or that will happen on your products will come to your table first, right? And so even though you are very much aware of quality management processes relating to your products, in terms of quality control, which is product testing, there's a more hands-on approach. So even if you're not doing it yourself, which is that's a very slim chance that you're not doing it yourself. But even if it happens that you're blessed and lucky and you're not doing product testing yourself, I still recommend you do product testing, because at the end of the day, you take the responsibility for the product, right? And so you want to ensure that when you launch the products, your CEO or your manager is not going to be asking the QA tester, have we launched? It's you they're asking for updates. If you launch the product and there's an issue, most likely they're coming to you first, and then it is you that will now send them to the right stakeholder for resolution. And so it doesn't look good that you don't know what is going on with your product, or you don't know what is going on your product. And so even if you are not tasked with the responsibility of conducting product testing, it's good practice to be on the team, see what they're doing, just be aware of what's happening in terms of testing your product, or you will test it yourself, which is very likely. Now, as previously explained, quality controls involve testing a product against the standard product requirements. And this standard product requirements is documented where? On PRD. See why PRD is very important. Now, in doing so, the PM has to keep in mind 4 out of the 5 aspects of quality management. Remember the quality aspects of quality management I mentioned earlier, which is performance, usability, reliability, and interoperability. These are the 4 aspects that when a product manager is testing a product, they test it. Think of it like benchmarks. You test it against these benchmarks. Is my product performance optimal? Is the user experience on the product optimal? Is my product reliable? And am I able to use this product? If it's a web application, you test on different browsers. You test on Safari for people who use Apple products. You test on Chrome. You test on all the different browsers that your users are likely to use your product on. This is why you need to really understand your products and your market. Then under interoperability, you also, if it is a mobile application, you test on Android, you test on iOS, and say, okay, can my users use my products on an Android phone or an iOS phone without it breaking down? So these are just the generic aspects of quality management, or generic benchmark of quality management, that while testing, you test against these benchmarks, right? And it's important to know, however, that it's common practice, I said this already, it's common practice for the term QA and QC to be used interchangeably. So if you're in if you're in a work environment and someone is saying, oh, they want to go and do QA, you know that it's product testing they're talking about, not the proactive aspect of test, not the proactive aspect of quality management. But it's good that you understand what they really mean, even though the industry slang or the industry term is QA for both QA and QA/QC. Now, building an efficient testing process. How do you ensure that you are, or what are the things that you have to do as you are about to test? Now, first of all is requirements gathering. You've done this already early on in the product. So this is step one is already done. And it's just you defining the requirements on PRD and documenting that. So that's already done. The second one is test planning, right? And so there's something called a test plan, but we are not going to go in depth because I don't want us to be too confused. And yes, I don't want us to be too confused. And this is more of a practical. QA testing is very practical, right? And because we don't have the opportunity to actually test a product, it will be difficult if I start to go into the nitty-gritty of what QA testing is. But this is just generic knowledge that if you're interviewing or you're having a conversation with someone in tech, you are able to still come across as someone who knows what they are doing, right? And so the second stage is test planning. Now, test planning is just essentially something called a test plan in QA, and you just essentially create a test plan for your product. So you develop a comprehensive test plan that outlines what will be tested and what the testing methodology is and what your criteria for success. Criteria for success essentially means, how do we know that this product has passed QA? That's your criteria for success. Test case design, you prepare your test case design. Now, test case covers your scenarios, positive test flow, negative test flow, and any edge cases that might come up, right? And then you execute your test, which is the testing of the product itself. Once the developers are done with writing code for your product, they'll push it to a testing environment. I already explained what a testing environment is. They conduct thorough testing across different browsers, devices, and operating systems, depending on the nature of your product. And this is a good place to remember to test again. So this is once you start to test, while you have a test plan and you have a test case, you are also testing against specific benchmarks, which are the 4 benchmarks of quality management. And then defects management. Now, like I said, the chances that your products, in fact, your product that is coming to the test environment is not a perfect product. Just know it's not perfect, right? Developers are human beings. You're a human being. You are also 2 different human beings. The person that wrote the requirements and the person that is coding are 2 completely different human beings. And so even as much as you try your absolute best to document requirements very, very clearly, the chances that they will not or they might not translate your concepts, especially backend, because that's what's in terms of functionality. The chances that they might not translate your requirements the way you have imagined it or the way you have documented it is high. And even if they do, there's the propensity that bugs are on your products. And so in defect management, this is while you're testing, you've documented whatever error you find. You document whatever error you find on something called a test sheet, and then you hand it over to the developers. And so they are fixing your issues whilst you are, so it's an iterative process where you keep testing, they fix, you test, they fix, you test, they fix, you test until you are sure that it's finally working the way it should. So it's not that you test, they fix, and you say, oh yeah, let's go. No, you test, they fix, you test again to confirm that what they've done has been fixed. Sometimes if you're even unlucky, they've broken another thing while they're fixing the previous one, right? And so you have to conduct meticulous tests. And this falls under communication and reporting, right? So defect management is just you logging whatever defects you might have noticed, whatever bug, whatever issue on your test sheet. And then under communication and reporting, you communicate, you hand over the sheets to your stakeholders and you communicate. Now, if in the process of you collaborating with your developers to fix an issue, you now discover that there's something that is going to take your developer has told you that this particular issue that is on our test sheet is going to take too long and it will affect our launch date, right? Remember, everybody knows your launch date, but it is you who will keep the launch date as front of mind because it's your priority, right? It's your primary task to launch the product. And so if you find that, oh, they've told you that something will take 3 days, and in that 3 days was supposed to be our launch date, you are now supposed to communicate this setback to every single relevant stakeholder. Now, remember, note that I said relevant, not every stakeholder. You communicate this to relevant stakeholders. Who are the relevant stakeholders? Use your stakeholder grid matrix that I have addressed in the first couple of I think it was week 3 or week 4 that we talked about it. Use a stakeholder matrix. Identify who are your relevant stakeholders. In terms of this, your relevant stakeholders will be people who have high power, high interest in your products, right, at this stage. And so you identify who they are, and then you escalate that, okay, this is what is on the table, and this is what is going to impact our launch. And as you are going there, you would have asked your developer, how long do we really need, right? And so if they told you that you need 3 days, well, you're telling your relevant stakeholders that your product is not going to be able to launch at the initial set time. You're telling them how much more time you need. If they tell you 3 days, you say you need 4 days. You communicate very, very clearly, so that, because if you're not communicating, it's very easy for your relevant stakeholders to feel frustrated, right? They are waiting for the product. They're not on the product development team, so they don't really have as much close proximity and as much visibility into what's going on. They might join your meetings occasionally and you're probably giving them updates, but in terms of just even proximity to the activities, product activities, they don't have that, right? And so the tendency for them to be impatient that your product is taking too long to come to launch is very high. And so when you're in testing, you're also factoring them into mind, and you're communicating and reporting whatever setbacks or whatever changes may have happened in the initial plan. Now let's come to QA tools. There are several QA tools, like so many. There's so many QA tools that you can use to conduct product testing, either in live environment or in a test environment. But we're going to address just three, the three most common that, well, there are others that are common as well, but we're going to address just three. One of them is Browser Stack. Now, Browser Stack is a testing tool that enables QA testers to test their products across multiple browsers, OS, and devices. Firebase is another tool, and it is a set of services and applications provided by Google. So Firebase is it's a Google product, and it's used for product development, it's used for testing, and used for analytics management. If anybody remember, I think Firebase was one of the analytics tools I shared 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. And then there's Postman, but Postman is for testing APIs. I have talked about APIs before, and APIs are just, they act as a bridge that allows software systems to communicate or interact smoothly with each other. Think of a fintech product now. Let's say you are launching let's use Grocery Pay. We're launching Grocery Pay, right? And we want our users to be able to pay, which means we have to integrate with Paystack, right? In integrating with Paystack, you're going to go and use Paystack API. You integrate Paystack API on your product. Obviously, you reach out to them and tell them they're trying to integrate so that you can have some form of support. But you integrate Paystack API. I'm not sure if it's free. I don't think it's free. It might be free, but there might be some financial agreements that will come in terms of maybe profit sharing or something. But you integrate Paystack API on your product. Now, in integrating Paystack API, you've created a bridge between your product and Paystack payment tools so that you're able to collect payments for your product using Paystack and their services. So that's just essentially what API does. It just acts as a bridge that allows software systems to communicate smoothly with each other. Now, quality management is a crucial and final step of the product development. And this is a conclusion. Is a crucial and final step of the product development process. And as I said earlier, greenlighting a product for launch means that you are giving your word that the product will meet user requirements and will deliver promised value on the market. So it's a very serious thing. It might sound like, oh, it's light, but it's not. It's very serious because it is who conducted QA. If the product is messy, who conducted QA, and why did you think that this product was ready for launch, right? Because again, this is why you have to understand how to manage your stakeholders and how to advocate for your product, because sometimes your product is not ready, but there's so much pressure. We have to launch, we have to launch, we have to launch. You might go to your stakeholders and say, oh, something is affecting launch dates, and they're adamant that you have to launch, right? And then by the time the product doesn't deliver value, it's almost as if they're coming back to say, okay, who's the product manager? So these things happen. Now, it is, however, if you greenlight a product for launch, then you have to be absolutely confident that this product is ready for the market, is going to deliver business value, is going to deliver value to our users, and is not going to mess us up in public. And so this kind of responsibility can put you under a lot of pressure, because if something fails, then you're accountable for it. But it's important which is why it's important to conduct meticulous testing across your product. Test against the 4 aspects of quality management, ensure that the product meets the requirements defined on the PRD, and use the appropriate testing tools and procedures to ensure that you are delivering a quality product to users. Now, in week 1, we talked about how cross-functional the role of the product manager is, and its intersection between business, technology, and user experience. And in light of that, you see that quality management falls under the technology aspects of that Venn diagram. Now, considering how diverse a PM role can be, it's very easy to be overwhelmed, because can just feel like you're doing so many things, you're juggling so many things, you're context switching at the same time, and it's easy to feel very overwhelmed. But it's just important to remember that you have a team to rely on for support. You can delegate. There are some things that some people will bring to your table, as I said, that might not be your responsibility, but because people are just used to the fact that, okay, if it's product, then we're going to the PM, right? Sometimes it might be something for customer success, and they are pushing it to your table. And so you have to, this is why you have to first understand what it is that is your job and what is not your job, so that you're not doing what is not your job, right? Or you're able to even advocate for yourself and say, no, this is not product responsibility. I've had an experience where a marketing responsibility was pushed to product. And it took me going to my manager to say, I don't think this thing is under product. And then we had a conversation about it, and she agreed with me that, oh, it's not under product. And then we had a larger conversation with her manager and the product marketer, and we're able to now properly say, oh, this is for marketing. We came to the agreement that, yes, this is not for product, this is for marketing. And then the expectations and the requirements were pushed to the appropriate person. And so, first of all, this is why I've been placing so much emphasis on what is your job, what is not your job, or what has the propensity to be your job, right? And there's some things that might not directly fall under your job, but because of lack of resources or for whatever reason, it will fall under your purview. And so it's permissible, it's allowable. But there are certain things that are just not your responsibility. And if you don't know, you're going to find that you are buried under so much work that you're not able to you're not even able to cope. And if you're not able to cope, it means the products will suffer. And the products is suffering. Nobody is knowing that you're even suffering, because you're probably not speaking up. You're trying to chest it, right? And so it's important to just understand that you're working with a team. As much as, yes, you have a lot of responsibility, you're working with a team. And so you need to learn how to delegate. You need to learn how to also recognize when you're overwhelmed and ask for help. And so for the people who have been asking, oh, is this really possible for one product manager to do all of these things. Yes, it's possible. However, if you are overwhelmed, and you speak up, another product manager can join you, right? And so that's why you find this is usually where you find product manager hiring product interns, which are entry-level product managers to support with the workload. So yes, you can find 2 to 3 product managers managing one product depending on the complexity and the extent of the work and the extent of the product, right? So that's that. And so just as I said, remember that you have a team, and then most of your responsibilities, once you just get into the swing of things, you get used to the responsibilities, you get used to the reasonable workload, not when your company is trying to kill you, right? But there's a reasonable workload that you know that, or you can manage, and just over time you find that it's just second nature as you're carrying out all of these responsibilities. So that's for quality management. Tomorrow we're going to talk about testing in product management, which is or rather testing methodologies. I will now open the floor to questions. Okay, Livingstone, you have a question. Livingstone.
Thank you, ma. Thank you, ma. So I think I'm confused. I don't know. Like I'm just lost. But one of my major questions is, you mentioned the 3 main activities of the quality management, which is the quality control, assurance, and planning. And you were only able to differentiate between the QA and the QC. That's number one. The second one is, you mentioned the 5 main aspects,
Oh, hold on. Let me
which
answer you
the
one after the other so I don't forget. What's the first question?
you only differentiate you made a difference between the quality assurance and quality control. I don't think the quality planning was touched.
Okay, so yes, and I explained why. I said that as a product manager, and for the context of this course, it's only quality assurance and quality control that concerns you.
Okay, so um this you mentioned 5 main aspects which the product can be tested now,
Mhm.
and you'll be able to differentiate the QA and the QC. Out of the 5 this thing that you mentioned, which one do we have a category? Okay, this one will fall under QA, like the performance usability will fall under QC, stuff like that. So I don't really understand it.
Can you say that
I
again?
don't know if you get my question.
No, I don't.
Like
Say.
the areas which the the product will be tested. You mentioned 5: the
Mm-hmm.
performance, usability, reliability, and all of those things.
Mm.
Is it that these 5 they fall under category of maybe it's either QA or QC that will undo
Okay,
that particular task of the thing?
QC, product testing.
Yes. Is it that okay? Maybe usability will fall under QA or will fall under
No,
QC, like those. Okay.
okay, I understand your question. So you want to know which area those categories fall under, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
So they fall under QC, which is product testing. That's where they fall under. But like I said, it's
Everything,
very
Abi? The
QC,
5.
QC. Yes, yes, yes. They fall
Oh,
under.
okay, okay.
But like I said, it's very common practice that they refer to QC as QA. So if they're talking about QA in terms of product testing, just know what they're talking about. Is that clear?
Okay, ma. Yes, thank you, ma.
All right. Um, Chigozuru,
Okay, good evening.
good evening.
Yes, so my question is just on the bugs that we're talking about, because I'm kind of an associate product manager now. So I have a product that is always having bugs, and it was not before I came on the product. So I don't even know if they did enough QC on it, but it literally has bugs every other day.
Is it
So
live? Is it product live?
yes, it's live.
And is having bugs on production?
Yes.
Huh. Is there an engineering manager on the team?
We just have a software engineer on the team, but
Is
and
there
we have
anybody
like
managing the engineer?
yes.
And that person is a senior.
Yes.
Do you have a manager?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so what I suggest you guys do is actually have a sit down with whoever is writing the code. The problem is with the code because that's why there's so much bugs. There needs to be a code review or somebody that is able to ensure that the code is not um, riddled with errors. So there needs to be a code review in place. Like you guys need to be assured that there's a code review in place, and that's the only way that we are sure that there is not this much bug is not happening. Because that's the only reason.
Okay.
Yeah, so you need to have a sit down with the stakeholders, the engineering manager. Have a sit down with your manager first and explain, and then maybe you, your manager, and the engineering manager or whoever manages that person have a sit down and talk about it. But it's actually something that should be escalated because it's frustrating, and you're probably you or your manager is probably taking the heat for this.
Yes. Yeah, thank you.
Welcome. Abraham. Abraham, please unmute your mic. Okay, Abraham, it's like you don't have a question. Ibrahim. Umar Ibrahim.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Please, you made mention of the testing benchmark. Are there something as the quality, the five aspect of quality management?
Yes, that's what I was referring to as the benchmark.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I think the last slide before the conclusion, they said that I think there's a mistake in the last sentence. They said that there are only 4 aspects of quality management.
Okay, so yes, I said that I mentioned this earlier that we are only using in terms of as a product manager, only 4 out of the 5 will concern you.
Okay. So which one should not be of concern among the 5?
Let me address it again, even though it's on the slide, but let me go back to it. So performance, usability, reliability, and interoperability are the 4 that will concern you, because maintainability it's regarding code and maintaining code, modifying code, and you're not a developer, so you probably that won't fall under your purview, but the other 4 will.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Shehu, I hope your network is good today. You can speak. Sure, you can speak. Oh. Shehu Olariwaju.
Okay, good afternoon. I just put me on speaker now. You haven't put me on speaker before.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Okay, thank God my network is good today. So what I want to ask is that the QAQC, is he a core role for a product manager, or is going to be a task for another person or office supervised by the product manager? Or
No, is that your question?
yeah, because I used to see an advert where the company will be advertising for the position of QA/QC, So I just want to ask: is he a core role for product manager, or the product manager, based on the description and the function of the features that we have on our products, you not supervise the QA/QC? Let me know. And in terms of superiority, who is superior? So let me know.
There's nothing like superiority in most software teams. But so I mentioned while I was speaking that there usually are QA testers or QA engineers, right, who do this work. But you might find that your company might not, for whatever reason, they might not be able to hire these people. Maybe there's no enough resources, there's no enough money for salary, or whatever reason, Sha, you might just find yourself on a team where there's no QA tester or QA engineer. And so as a product manager, you will be responsible for testing a product.
Okay, the reason why I'm asking this question is that I'm a project manager in
Okay.
construction field anyway. So
Mm.
we used to have a QA QC personnel to come to the site, inspect our work and the like. So now at the end of the day, we used to have disagreements between we, the project manager, and the QA QC manager. So we used to have
Mm.
like, so at the end of the day, we normally overrule their recommendation or their instruction, like, this place is not good, adjust it. They'll have to give you some,
Mm.
they will give you some instruction or recommendation that you do this, do that. So because of the timeline, maybe sometimes you feel like the timeline you have is short and you cannot be going back. You know how construction can be sometimes. So I just want to use that to relate with the product management anyway. So you cannot go back. Let's talk about let me take a launch date for instance now. So,
Mm.
when you have already do some things, you are testing your product. I now realize that the QA keys now give you an instruction that you need to adjust this, and you see what this QA keys were trying to let you that was trying to tell you to adjust or to do or to correct is not really significant. It's something that you can still fly with the product. Hey, so you as a product manager will not feel like we have to go back to this. It's going to take much of our time. Then I don't need to go back. Let me just launch my products, and you
Mm.
don't pay attention to that correction or recommendation or instruction whatsoever the QA keys man. So that was what I'm now asking. Is it the product manager is superior in terms of giving instruction and
Okay.
order to QA or the
Um,
QA should be superior? That's why I'm asking.
okay. So in terms of chain of, well, again, I'm very hesitant to use superiority, but in terms of decision making,
Yeah.
the box stops with the product manager. So yes, the product manager can make a decision to launch a product against
Okay.
QA advice.
Okay.
However,
Okay.
you have to have been sure that you have done proper risk assessment, right? And this is
Okay.
this is a bit advanced, but let me explain. If
Okay.
you if you decide that you want to launch a product and QA has told you that this thing is not working properly, but because
Okay.
you now product manager, you want to work with your own timeline, you want to meet up with your launch date, you don't want any delay, you don't want any setback. So you're
Okay.
like, oh, we'll fix it when we launch. What if you want to do that sort of thing? You have to now do risk assessment, and risk assessment is just you and the product function, right? You're assessing whether whatever it is that QA is advising against is not impactful to the point that it will affect your users or your product performance,
Okay.
right? And
Okay.
so you conduct user risk assessment, maybe with whatever, if whatever the issue is an engineering issue, maybe it's a functionality issue, right? you
Okay.
you you now collaborate with your developer and say, hey, we want to launch it, but this thing is not working. What do you think? Do you think we can launch and then fix it when the product is already live? Because you want to meet up with your launch date. So you conduct risk assessment, sync with your relevant stakeholders, and see if it's possible. And if it's possible, you can now go ahead and launch. But just bear in mind that if you are doing that, like I said, you take the responsibility.
I understand.
So
That's fine.
if the fallback is negative, it's you that will carry it.
Okay. Okay. I
Yeah,
understand. All right. Thank you, man.
you're welcome.
I have a good network today. Thank you.
Prince Oguta. Good day, Prince Oguta.
Good evening, ma.
Good evening.
Yeah, I was really impacted by the lecture. Is this question that I wanted to ask. Under building an efficient testing process, you made mention of requirement gathering, testing planning, test case design, test execution, defect management, communication, and reporting. I just wanted to be clear as a quality manager, like which of these very ones that is best equivalent for you to be used in that your organization in order to manage your organization well in the
These
process of
are so these are the steps that you take in conducting QA or QC, right? So these are the steps that you take in conducting QA QC. You document your requirements, which you've already done. You gather your requirements, right? You've already done that. You create a test plan, and I briefly talked about a test plan. You create a test case, right? And then you start testing, which is number 4, test execution. You start testing. Number 5, you notice whatever bugs or whatever defects, and you log it in something called a test sheet. You log it in test sheets, you hand it over to your developers, and they resolve. And so I said that this is an iterative process where they resolve, you test, they resolve, you test until you are sure that the defect has been sorted. And then number 6 is communication and reporting. And this is just you being transparent in terms of communication. If the product has passed QA, you communicate to all your stakeholders that we're launching. You tell marketing we're launching. You tell I think it's just marketing because they're the ones working with you for launch. You tell marketing that you're launching. If there's a delay in your launch date for whatever reason that has come up during your testing or during defect management, you communicate to your stakeholders that this is something that is now a blocker in us launching our products.
Yeah. Well understood. Yeah. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Anybody else? If we do not have any other question, we can call it a day. Anybody else? Najib, I believe you sent me a message, a DM today. I will reply your DM. Oh, okay, no, you need me to take action. I will take action after this class, so don't worry. I noticed that your hands were up earlier, and I suspect that that's what you wanted to ask. Okay. Livingstone.
The question I want to ask is not based on what we've done. I just want I forgot. Sorry. I want to ask if tomorrow will be the last class before the project.
No, tomorrow is not the last class. Next week is our last class before the project.
Okay.
Gloria.
Okay, good evening. Thank you so much for the class. My question is, as it regards tracking bugs, whose duty is it to document the bugs found? And because when I was trying to do last week's assignment, I had to read up on the bug and all of that. Whose duty is it to be the developers or the PM to track, document the bugs and everything that the bugs entail, especially like or
whoever is doing the testing is the person who can document bugs. So if you are testing, then it's you who document it on the test sheet and for the developer. So that's what. So when you are doing testing, it's not that you just be using your mouth to tell them this thing is not working. You put it, you document it on something called the test sheet, right? And I specifically did not go too in-depth into it because, as I said, it's a bit practical, and if we're doing too much theory, you might get lost. But there's something called a test sheet, and then the whatever issue that you have experienced, you document it on the test sheet for the developers. Share the document with them. They take a look at it. On the test sheet, you would have documented the steps you took that you encountered that error on. So if, for example, you're testing a product on an Android, you're testing onboarding on an Android phone, right? On the test sheet, you are going to specify that I opened this app on an Android and the app closed. on its own,
Okay.
right? So that they are able to know what the issue is.
Reproduce or
They're
track.
able to yeah, exactly. They're able to reproduce or track the issue. So you clearly document the steps that you took that resulted in the error that you experienced on the test sheet, and then they are able to fix it. And when they fix it, you test it again to confirm that it has been fixed. Because sometimes, like I said, things break all the time. And especially when they start fixing, you find that something that was working before that's broken, and in your mind you've tested that thing already, and so it's just you just being meticulous about testing and continuously testing until you're sure that everything works fine.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Abraham, you can unmute your mic. Abraham, you're holding all of us hostage. Okay. I assume this is it for today. Tomorrow we're going to talk about user Abraham, one last chance. Speak now or you hold your peace. You've been unmuted. Ask your question. You have to unmute yourself and ask a question.
All right. Good evening, ma.
Good evening.
Yes, ma. Thanks for this. So, the lecture is actually interesting, but at a point I got scared because of the rules that a product manager has to carry. So my own listing is this on the aspect of the quality assurance, because I take it as another side of tech, like another aspect on its own. So as a product manager, if we're also overseeing what a quality assurance is to do, so the thing is, how possible is this? Because it's a big task on its own, the quality assurance. And I'm not talking about the product testing, like that means it has to be maybe on feed or life or whatever it is. So the thing is, how is it possible to actually take these things together to manage all these aspects together? And the second thing is it after this course? I think I saw something about post training or post training or so. So is it possible? Like, are we going to engage in post training, or it's just after this certificate and you feel success yourself or whatever? Because I really think, you understand what this is really talking about, we need to actually do something practical, like a real practical sense, different from teaching, the training itself. So that's my question. So I just want to know.
What's your question? You said plenty things. What's your question? What's the first question? What's the first question?
I said, as a product manager, also overseeing what a quality assurance is to do. Like, how is it feasible? How is it?
Okay. As I said, and I suspected that this is actually a concern that some of us will have, that there's just too many things that you're doing. But what you have to bear in mind is that while other people have specific roles, you don't necessarily have. If you notice that your roles or your responsibilities or your tasks are evolving the further along the project progresses. Did you notice that? So product designers, for example, their job is just to design products, design screens on Figma, right? Developers, their job is just to code. But you as the product manager now, you've conducted user research and PRD, right? Which is what developers are using. Now, while the developers are coding, you might be doing something else. Maybe you're doing QA or you're doing user research for another role. So what I'm just trying to say is that you're not doing all these things at the same time. You're doing whatever the responsibilities of the task you're doing is dependent on what stage your product is at in terms of product development. So it's not as if you'll be doing QA, you'll be doing 1 million things at the same time. Yes, there are times when you have to juggle multiple things, but your tasks are changing on a rolling basis. They are evolving. So some of these things that you'll be doing are depending on where your product is in terms of product development.
All right, ma'am.
Yeah.
So the second question about the post-training.
No, there's no, to the best of my knowledge, there's no post-training for this program. I'm not sure if Access Bank has communicated something differently to you guys. So you will even be in the best position to know. Maybe ask your classmates if such a thing has been talked about.
All right, ma'am. Because there's somebody that talked about missing attendance or something like that last time. But the content that was on it is you have missed your attendance. I can't really remember the cap what the content is, but I saw something about post-training in that text.
Okay.
So that was what I wanted to know. Since we also take attendance, Mr. Joshua is in charge or something. I don't know, maybe the information was from him or the person got it from another.
I don't know, maybe reach out to the person, but to the best of my knowledge, there's no talk of post-training. You'll get a certificate at that course anyways.
All right, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So I was saying that tomorrow we are going to have a no, we're not actually going to have anything, but we're going to discuss usability. We're going to discuss testing methodology. So remember I said that the aspects of QA or the aspects of quality management that really concern you as a product manager is product testing, which is QC. And tomorrow we're going to talk about different testing methods, which are A/B testing, usability testing, and all of that. And these are tests that just are targeted towards ensuring that the product delivers in terms of user experience. So that's it for today. We can call it a day. And yeah, see you guys tomorrow, 5 p.m. Yes, 5 p.m.